These planes, they come at 1 hour intervals, and they hit the back of the hospital where I deliver these medical aids, and all the doctors and the nurses have evacuated the Ras Naluf hospital, and about 30 ambulances were taking the wounded and the dead to the nearest city, which is Brega, and then to Jdabiya. So Ras Naluf at the moment does not have any hospital. Mr. Gaddafi forces has landed using a very big ship, which we thought it was an oil tanker. It exactly resembles oil tankers, but is painted as a gray color, and has landed about 12 boats, rubber dinghy boats, filled with soldiers, which they landed into the city, on the shores of the city.
Well, Britain and France have issued a joint statement saying Gaddafi must go. They're also saying the EU should prepare to support the Libyan rebellion. France had earlier recognised the Benghazi-based opposition council as Libya's rightful government. Tim Friend has more from Paris.
After being accused of being slow to react to the revolutions in Tunisia and Egypt, the French president has moved quickly to silence his critics and take the lead in reprisals against Colonel Gaddafi. Meeting representatives of the rebels at the Elysee Palace, he promised them immediate diplomatic recognition.
France has expressed its satisfaction about the creation of the Libyan National Transition Council. And after this meeting with President Sarkozy, I can say that France has recognised the Transitional National Council as the legitimate representation of the Libyan people.
The French plan is reported to include proposing limited airstrikes against key Gaddafi targets, such as his headquarters and a military airbase. There was no official confirmation from President Sarkozy's office, and it's a highly controversial proposal that would meet with strong resistance from many European allies, who are also wary of giving the rebel representatives diplomatic recognition at this stage.
That's a decision by a single government. I think it's better for us to listen to the stance of the entire European community.
The Elysee Palace says that Mr. Sarkozy is seeking legal authority to prevent the use of force by Gaddafi. It believes that jamming his communications would be a good start. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera, Paris.
Well, NATO and the European Union have given the green light to send warships to the Mediterranean off Libya's coast. But debate continues over declaring a no-fly zone. Britain and France have backed the plan, but the US is expressing deep reservations. Alan Fisher has the latest from Brussels.
A number of countries have been kicking around the idea of a no-fly zone above Libya, particularly the United Kingdom and the United States, although both have acknowledged there would be difficulties with employing that. What we got from NATO were the principles that would have to be met before military action could be considered. First of all, there had to be a clear need for military action. Secondly, there had to be a clear mandate from the United Nations, a legal go-ahead saying everything was okay. And thirdly, there had to be regional support. The African Union and also the Arab League saying that they supported a no-fly zone, because NATO is concerned that if they did launch military action, it could be painted, if there was dissent, as this simply being Western military aggression against an Arab state. So what NATO has essentially done is saying we are ready to put in place a no-fly zone, but first the politicians have got to give us the green light.
Well, Libyan state television says 3 Dutch Marines who were captured in Libya are to be released. The report was on the Al Libya TV channel. A Greek official says they will be flown to Greece after their release. The Marines were captured in northern Libya in February as they tried to evacuate 2 civilians by helicopter. The United States says it's monitoring the situation in Saudi Arabia after police opened fire on protesters. The Saudi Interior Ministry says 2 protesters and a policeman were injured after police fired into the air in the eastern city of Qatif. People had rallied in the eastern city calling for political reform and for the release of 9 political prisoners. Bernard Smith reports.
A rare demonstration in eastern Saudi Arabia. This footage, supplied to the Associated Press, can't be independently verified. It's believed to be from Qatif city on Wednesday night. This restive region is home to mainly Shia Muslims. Neighbouring Bahrain is 70% Shia and has been racked by weeks of protests. These scenes are just the sort of contagion feared by Saudi Arabia's Sunni Muslim leaders. And so, in a region where most rulers have extremely deep pockets, the Gulf Cooperation Council has decided to try and buy itself out of trouble. Bahrain and Oman are to benefit from a multi-billion-dollar aid package from their richer neighbours.
$10 billion for the Kingdom of Bahrain and $10 billion for the Sultanate of Oman. We believe that this is an ambitious program, but it also shows the strong support that comes from the GCC countries to the Sultanate of Oman and to the Kingdom of Bahrain.
These protesters are chanting down with the regime and no Sunni, no Shia, we are Muslim. But the Saudi Sunni leadership is deeply suspicious of the role of Shia powerhouse Iran in all of this. There's a call for protests across the country on Friday, despite an official ban. There are reports that when this protest was repeated in Qatif on Thursday, police fired on the crowd, injuring at least one person, according to a witness. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera.
Well, the unrest in Saudi Arabia, Libya and other oil producers is being blamed for a big drop in US stocks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average had its worst day in 7 months, falling 1.9%. Energy producers were some of the biggest losers. An arrest warrant has been issued for Tunisia's former Interior Minister, Rafiq Belhaj Qasim, on charges of murder. That's according to the state news agency. Qasim was Interior Minister during the popular uprising that ousted President Ben Ali in January. Well, he's accused of being complicit in the killings of scores of protesters and has been in police custody since February. Police in the United Arab Emirates are calling for a popularly elected parliament. A group of Emirati activists and intellectuals has signed an online petition to President President Khalifa bin Zayed and Nahyan. Its members are calling for free and democratic elections. The debate over Islamic radicalization is dividing opinion in the US. A controversial hearing has been told US Muslims are not doing enough to fight terrorism. Opponents have condemned the debate as un-American. And it's taken 3 years, but thousands of tons of construction material is finally on its way to Gaza. Those reports when we come back.
Over the Sea of Japan, as cool conditions persist, you'll find something to whet your appetite.
Welcome back to your international weather forecast. Well, across India, we are looking at fairly clear conditions all the way from the north down to the south. What we are seeing, though, is very warm conditions indeed. As you can see here, most of the temperatures across the region are in the mid to upper 30s. Really, you need to go up to New Delhi to get into the 20s, and we are looking at about 29 degrees there. Kathmandu, about 24 degrees. But out towards the Bay of Bengal, we need to watch this area very closely.